I'm a producer and in a company based in Paris named AGAT Films Cie. We are an indie company. We produce a lot of feature film, TV documentary, and I'm in charge of all that is not linear content, video game, interactive site, etc. My first project was about the memory of World Cup and how soccer and World Cup are creating bonds at an international level and sharing memories of this event. We create also a project about the people who still live in the Chernobyl zone 25 years after the explosion of the power plant. And for example, we also did a project about manifestation in France in '61 connected to the Algeria war, and it was a mix between online documentary and street art. And the authors of the where the events happened were recreating and sticking archive in Paris where the protest of October '61 happened. I work a lot also around science. I did several series, online non-fiction series, and also animated short about science. This one, for example, is named You Will Die Less Dumb, and it's about how to explain science to children. I'm also very interested in TV series and fiction, and we did several interactive experiences for artists, especially on the series Real Human. I don't know if you see that. It's a story about robots that you can have at home, and the robots are taking control of the society. And so we create a fake website when you can order your own robots, and we also add an hotline, and you can call us, and we were faking that we were selling to you some robots. And in the last part of the experience, we create the possibility to scan yourself using face recognition and to print a 3D models of a mix between your face and the robots in the series. So what I'm trying to do is to mix technology and storytelling in a lot of different ways, sometimes in non-fiction, sometimes in fiction. I'm also very interested in TV series and data, so we work with a graphic designer from Chicago called Nigel Evans Dennis, and he tried to map the first season of Peaky Blinders, a British TV show. You can watch it on Netflix, and for example, this is the kind of work we did with them. Also, an important part of the travel that led us to Notes On Blindness is this video game we produced 3 years ago named Typewriter. It's a platformer video game about typography, and every level is a font, and you will discover the history of the font through this game, and the last secret level is Comic MS, of course. And through this project, we discover the Scrum production method and Agile management, and there has been a big shift in the way we are building our project. So, I'm here to talk more precisely about Notes On Blindness. Notes On Blindness is a project with a feature film and a VR experience. And the center of this project is this question: how does it feel to be blind? We can have the feeling that it's very easy to simulate blindness by closing your eyes, but there is a whole world of perception you can't simulate by just closing your eyes. You can't really empathy with what is the situation of someone who is blind on a personal level, but also on a social level. And this is the story we discovered through the testimony of John Hull. John Hull was a theologian and a philosopher, a British philosopher. He lived in Birmingham, and age 45 he became blind, and he started recording several hours of tapes, 16 hours of tapes, to try to understand what blindness was doing to him. And this story had been published in this book named Touching the Rock, with a foreword by Oliver Sacks, who is considering this book as one of the most important testimony of blindness. If you take a look at. So, two young filmmakers, Peter Middleton and James Finney, during their university years read this book, and at the end of this book, the journal is mentioning that this book is coming from tapes, and they send an email to John Hull, and a few weeks after they receive 16 hours of recording on these C90 tapes, and they start digging into it. And at first they start with very abstract short sequence and film, and it became a more relevant short film named also Notes On Blindness. It started with an op doc on the New York Times. They won an Emmy Award for it, and in a way this short film is the prototype of the feature film they released this year and that we could produce with them. It's a very new way of doing documentary because the documentary material, the non-fiction material, is only the audio. All what you see in the film is dramatization played by actors, and the actors are lip syncing on the original tapes. So for the comedian it was really challenging because they have to learn the lines and also to learn the rhythm, and they were giving their line, but at the same time have to keep in mind the rhythm of all the audio sequence. So when Peter and James start to edit the film, at first they edit only the audio. They create a kind of first audio prototype of the film. This approach, this is the one they had also in the short film, was really important because in this linear form they are already taking some liberty and creative freedom regarding what is a documentary. So this project is co-produced with Arte. It's a cultural network in France. And Arte has a very strong strategy mixing online content and TV content. So, for example, Arte produces a lot of online experience and online documentary, also with the NSB. Sandra participated in Do Not Track. And when Arte decided to be involved in the feature documentary, they come to us to co-produce the feature and also to imagine something on digital platform. So the project we will talk today is a feature and the VR experience. So how the VR experience starts? The core team in the project are so Peter Lindenton, James Pinney, Amaury, and I from Audio Gaming, a startup in France specialized on interactive audio. And when we started the project, it was a blank page. So we start to imagine what we can do around this feature on digital, and as this project was audio-based, our first idea was a kind of interactive podcast. I'm a big fan of serial, and in the interactive field, especially in non-fiction or even in fiction, there is basically nothing as audio interactive content. And we say, okay, with this project, there is some very good reason to do something only based on audio. So the idea was to use the possibility of mobile, like gyroscopic some interaction with the touchpad, or a mic interaction, like in Zelda when you can blow on the boat to make it flow, and to use a binaural sound to create soundscape and 3D audio space. And so the idea was to have an interactive soundscape using your mobile and using the gyroscope to have this immersion in sound. And one of the interesting things in binaural is that it's trying to recreate the reverberation of sound around you. So we decided not to use only a binaural recording, but to use binaural synthesis, which means I need to recreate it using computer and software. And we did several prototypes, but we had, after some tests, we had a quite big problem, is that we decided to have nothing on the screen, just a black screen or a fixed image, And we saw during this playtest that the sighting audience was unable to focus their attention on anything because of the screen. Also, for example, we had to ask the people to close their eyes. Some of them were not really doing it, and at the point we said, okay, if the core element of this project, as in the John Hull's book, is to communicate and to transmit what it's like to be blind, we need to address the sighted audience properly, and we'll have to use images, and we'll have to have a visual representation of blindness. So it was the main problem we have to solve, is how you represent visually the world of blindness, the world that John Hull is calling the world beyond sight. So what we did is that we start digging deeper in John Hull's testimony, his book, the transcription of his tapes, and we find this quote when he said that the acoustic world consists only of activity. Every sound is a point of activity. Where there is no activity, there is no sound, and then that part of the world dies. And it gives us the line to follow during all the experiments. We decide that all the visual will be connected to sound activity. So when we find this concept and we are trying to apply it, we start to create some graphical prototypes. So for example, here it was just kind of how we represent space when the space is empty for blind people. So we are trying to find the right balance between visual references and also meaningful elements. So we start to, it was like, this is really the first artwork we did with a graphic designer named Arnaud in Paris, and it started to give us a sense of what the experience was. I really liked this design, but it was a little too technological compared to the testimony of John Hull. So we did several elements to try to see how we can give a sense of movement. All of this was just artwork on Photoshop. It wasn't. And also we are looking at some other references, not only in John Hull's book. One of these references was Georges-Louis Borges' book, where he's talking a lot about blindness, because he became blind at the end of his life. And it was very interesting to have this testimony about that blind people don't see black, they see some vague shapes and colors. And we create some mood boards to give us a sense of what we can create. So we try to find our inspiration in a lot of different elements in literature and poetry, and also in pop culture to influence us. We start working with some other art directors, because Arnaud was a very good art director, but he didn't have any experience in mobile or even in 3D. And we had to find someone who knew a little about mobile technical specification. And he gave us also some very good feedback, but it was like too Harry Potterish or too fantasist, and especially what was interesting, it was in a way it was too visual. So we start to ask Fabien to remove more and more elements in the scene, and it was quite complicated for him, because graphic designers in video games don't like emptiness, they want you to fill everything. At this point we decided that we had a good idea on the art direction of what we wanted to achieve, and we start some technical prototypes, and this one was the first technical prototypes where it's a 3D animation. The shader of these 3D models are light by the sound. So there is so we did some code to create a behavior of every 3D model based on their sound activity. So first we create this animation, and then we add the behavior of the shader, and we say, okay, when there is a sound connecting to this object will be in color or with light. So this was our first prototype to see if this behavior was working. We used Unity game engine, and here it's ShaderForge, and ShaderForge is a plugin that gives you the possibility to create graphical and visual behavior for 3D object. And for example, this is the shader of this object in the first scene. We continue to work with Fabien to define the art direction. So as you can see, things become more and more blurry, but it's still very, very heavy. And we did the first in-game prototype, and for us it was a very important moment because we validate that it was possible to run this on a mobile or on a tablet. And then we continue our work on art direction, and we asked Beatrice Lartigue, who is a senior art director, very well known for interactive work, to help us, and for me she brings that what the project was missing, which is something more poetic. So she did everything in After Effects, and she didn't have any experience in programming. So to finally arrive to this art direction, which is the final one, we had to work with 3 art directors, and also to negotiate a lot with programmers. We'll talk about it later. So how we designed the scene, we used a lot of sketch, and it was like designing a theater or little models, and we recreate in drawing the scene of every chapter. And in this scene, for example, it's the first chapter. The number 1 in the center it's John Hull, but it's also the user. That's why we represented the John Hull holding, in a way, an iPad. And this is what we used to set all the scene, and also to communicate with the team regarding what we want to achieve in terms of how you put the 3D models in the scene. One very important element, and people working in video games know this very well, is the importance of camera. And for example, when we start the first chapter, during several months the camera was too high, and we had a very strange feeling. It was like something was wrong, but we didn't know what. And in fact, it's just that all the story was about something sitting on a bench with a camera here, which wasn't possible at all. So we switched it to the position of someone sit on a bench, and the immersion and the story was absolutely different, and it was working. So we continue to make a lot of prototype on mobile and tablet interaction using, for example, mic or gyroscope. And at this point, we have the film in production. The app is also in production, and the app is only so 360. The film is more a viewing experience. The app is more on the experiential side of things. The film is a biopic. The app is more about sensation, and the main difference is that the film is at the first person, and the app at the first person. And we applied to the Tribeca New Media Fund with the 2 prototypes you saw, the one in-game and the gameplay prototype. And 2 things changed. The first is that we applied to another grant in France at the National Center of Cinematography, and there is a grant for new technology. And we had this grant, and we said, okay, we have a new budget to create a VR experience using Oculus or using cardboard, and it was really impressive, because in fact the Google Cardboard brings us what we needed, which means cutting the user from his environment. For us, the cardboard was not at this time a VR goggle, but more a mask from the reality. And because when we look at mobile in a magic window mode, there is all your environment around and your attention is absolutely not focused in the same way. So we start this prototype with cardboard and we say, okay, we find the right balance between distribution and the immersion and the mission we have. And then working with the developer team from Audio Gaming, a studio in the south of France, we focus our work on mobile platform to be accessible, and so especially Google Cardboard and Samsung Gear. And we also decide to keep the 360 version to have a distribution using iOS. And we said, okay, we'll be accessible to anyone who has mobile. And we absolutely discard all the PC and console platform because there is not enough user at this time. Notes On Blindness is not a 360 video, as you understand. It's a virtual reality experience. There is no room scale, and you can't move around this experience, but you can move in the scene using the trackpad, for example. And I think it's a very important element. Why? Because our cognition capacity are designed and developed from birth, not as an observer, but as a creator acting in the world. And in this world, we are not only brain, we are only hands and bodies. So minds and bodies, I think, mind and hands, I think it reminds you of something. How we arrived here, it's because we apply an iterative production model. We start with a global vision of the project, really focus on the narrative script. Then we apply interactive script on this narrative, art direction, programming, testing, etc. And we have the possibility to redefine the project several times. We start with an audio podcast, then a 360 magic window experience, and then a VR based on mobile platform, and now we are in the iteration 4, we are working on an Oculus Rift version and probably an HTC Vive and PS4 version. And I think for people who work in software, there is nothing new here, but for the content industry who finance our project, it's a nightmare, this. Because when we start in 2014, I had to sign a contract defining the work we will deliver, and the first contract is about a 90 minutes interactive podcast. And 2 years after, they had a 20 minutes with VIII chapter VR experience. So I'm very grateful to Arte for this, because depending on who is your client or co-producer, if all the team are not ready to rethink everything, I think you can't arrive to what we did, because nothing was premeditated. We didn't have a vision like, we will do a VR project about blindness, but what? But as we were focused on audio and story, when we had to pivot, to switch in something visual, the reason of this switch was the distribution, the meaning of the project, to give a sense of what it's like to be blind to sighted audience, and also we find in John Hull's testimony and in the non-fiction material the concept to present this experience using graphic interactivity and finally VR. But it was also complicated because there is a lot of, it's a very long way to arrive there, and this is maybe a graphic you know, but I add this last one because yeah. So first, you have an idea, you have to express it using words, you have to transmit these thoughts in words to your team that needs to understand it, and then the team is trying to prototype, and then there is the real achievement behind. And yeah, I think this is the core element in the production, is the communication. But the communication, you have to use every asset you can find. For example, talking with the art directors, we talk a lot about painting or installation. For example, we mentioned a lot the Bill Viola working with Beatrice. But working with the programmers, we were more talking about Daredevil, for example. And it's very important when you have to direct or to work on the creative direction of this kind of work, that you have a lot of references you can use in every media: literature, video game, comics, advertising, everything that can help you to transmit what you have in mind. And we, as very often, we discover that the real boss, as you know, in the production are the programmers. And that's why I mentioned Typewriter at the beginning, because I learned a lot working with programmers during this project, and I have to offer them a lot of drinks to drink. But it's part of the way you can achieve what you want. It's to also understand the psychology of everyone in the team, and not to try to impose something. So this is really very basic ideas, but first, be prepared, be precise in what you want when you discuss with the programmers, and show that you understand the nature of the job they are doing. I'm not a programmer. I just had at the university some action script class, but it helped me a lot to understand what is the programmer job. And I think if you think about directing some interactive work, take at least few classes about code just to understand the logic behind it. Regarding the timing, it's true for a lot of things. Just if you think it will take like 1 hour, it will take 5 hours. Specify what you want and be precise, because everything will be created using code, and every line of code has a specific function. And also, I think it's very important, especially on narrative content, to explain the meaning of your request. You are not building an app, you are not building a services, you are building a stories, and you must involve the programmers in the story. So it's really important that everybody in the team understand the meaning of what they are doing. Most of the time, presents are defined by technical elements, such as the tracking, the latency, the persistence, every element that the VR headset company are working on since the first Oculus Rift. But we have a different approach on Notes On Blindness, and this is something we developed with Amaury from Audio Gaming, and that we call it the onion theory, also because as French person, everything is connected to food. And the idea is that presence is a multi-layered group of sensation. It's not purely technical. And the core element of this presence is what if. It's narrative. What if I was blind? What if I was in a forest with dinosaurs? And this what if question about the presence and immersion is, in fact, connected to any storytelling. And if there are people who watch the OA on Netflix, okay, look at it, even if it can be very abstract. This is a TV series about the power of narrative. And I think this is the core element of presence. I don't think it's only technical elements, it's the stories. And in these stories you have the emotion, and the emotion is brought by the John Hull voice and John Hull original recording. Then you have the capacity of interact, and to give you the feeling of agency. Yeah. There is what we call the gradual construction. is that you can't throw away a user in this kind of virtual environment where he will have to interact without any explanation. But we didn't want to give them too many instructions, like in a video game or like in an app, to avoid to break the immersion in the story. So as in video game, we try to build a difficulty curve and to have more and more complex interaction. That's why the first scene of Notes On Blindness is just linear, and then you have some basic interaction and more complicated at the end. And the final chapter, the epilogue, is also a linear chapter because we wanted to have a release in the attention of the user. We wanted to feel like this is the end of this journey. 3D and CGI are really important because it's the possibility to have a real-time environment and interaction. And so you have real-time binaural rendering and sound design. I think you heard a lot about how sound design and sound is important in VR, and it's absolutely true, especially to drive attention. But it's like we are currently discovering that audio is so important. One of the questions is how you keep the flow in the experience. So the flow is a notion in video game. It's the balance between the attention, the visual attention, and the interaction. And we try to adapt the rhythm of the experience to the behavior of the user. So what you can't see in the first chapter, the first linear chapter, is that we are tracking your behavior and the way you interact in the scene. If you are in the 360 in this 360 world and you just look in front of you, at the point we consider that you didn't understand how things work, and to keep your attention we will play the voice quicker, just to focus your attention on the story. If you are exploring a lot, like moving around, we will delay the different sequence of voiceover because we think you are enjoying being immersed in this experience. So this is something we try to do on every chapter, is to adapt a little the rhythm of the experience to keep your attention. And as you saw, Peter and James were really focused on the audio on all the project. So they did something very interesting, which is they empowered the audio description. There is a lot of, in the blind community, there is a lot of discussion about the format of audio description. Is it good or bad? Is it creating something which is not a film? And they create a spatial audio soundtrack for blind audience. So we released the project on June last year on Samsung Gear VR, and in October on Google Play Store and on the Appstore in two versions, a cardboard version and a non-cardboard version, so it was really time-consuming. And we tried to use 360 video platform more as promotion, using Arte application, and also we have been lucky to be featured on the New York Times VR app with the first chapter. When we released the project, we had a lot of requests from video platform, and it was quite complicated for us to create a video version of this interactive experience. So we released only the first chapter that can be effective in a linear version. So when the project had been released in June, we had a feature on the Oculus mobile page, and it drove us a lot of download, especially because it was the sales, the Oculus sales. And I can't communicate about the numbers, but it's very high numbers. As the project is connected to a film, the distributor of the film organized some virtual reality screening connected to the feature. It was really interesting because people were coming to see the film, and before or after they had the possibility to see the VR experience in a very good context. We had also several screenings in VR cinema. This one is in Cannes. This is the beginning of collective VR experience. In this cinema, they are showing linear version and they are able to synchronize it using an app, but in Notes On Blindness, everyone needs to be at his own rhythm. So you can find all this content on the Notes On Blindness website, and we have also a short film about John Earl daughter we released a few months ago. Now I want to address some questions I have, and maybe you'll have some answer to me, or just thoughts. First, what we can see right now is that there is a huge trend in what we can call immersive entertainment. You have Pokemon Go, you have the Magic Leaps hype, you have the escape room, you have the Sleep No More and immersive theater, and I think each of these formats and VR are connected by this same idea of immersion. And I really don't know how VR will be applied in entertainment or even in industry, but I think what is changing is that the users are more and more focused on immersion. And I also think one of the reasons is TV series, because you stay in a narrative environment, a narrative context during hundreds of hours, looking Game of Thrones, The Sopranos, or The Wire, and when you finish the season or the whole series, you are like, it's awful, you don't want to leave this environment. And I think there is something that connects every of these media, and probably the next generation will be really deeply into immersive entertainment, and all the things we learn doing VR will be probably used in a very different way. And I think that in the next few years, we will not have a feature with a virtual reality screening. We will have a feature and an escape room, like Jurassic Park 4 and Jurassic Park Escape Room in the same theater. Or you will have specific theme park or theme attraction and theme ride connecting to a narrative environment. So it gives a very strong commercial value to stories and to universe, such as because it's becoming franchise. And I think we will probably see less stories, but a bigger use and people digging deeper into it. In the interactive community, people now don't want to use anymore the term transmedia, like transmedia was a failure. No, it's just that now everything is transmedia. But we don't have to say it, but if you look at any development made in IPs, in video game, or in the movie industry, everything is developed on different platforms with a narrative connection between different platforms. The other thing that I'm really interested in is about the attention. So you probably know all the idea of attention, the economy of attention, that attention is limited resources, and that advertising is trying to capture our attention. This is based on the book of Matthew Crawford. He's a professor in Virginia. And one day he's going to the bank and he's ready to tap his code. And in the loading time, there is an advertisement. And he said, okay, there is a marketing genius who saw that my attention was focused in this 3 seconds and he give me a commercial message to it. And in VR, you are absolutely focused in this environment. And for a long time, like 20 minutes in VR. But right now, as there is no consumer, there is very few advertising in VR, or there is few notification system in VR, and I think we really should enjoy this right now, because the more and more the VR headset will be spread, the more and more it will be seen as the capacity to sell attention to brands or to company or etc. So that's why it's really important that journalists and documentarists and artists use VR to avoid, in a way, what you can see already on your phone when you go to the App Store, where there is like very few indie content, but massively branded content or big studio license developed. And also I have this question is that if we are in a world where we have a lot of solicitation, notification, when you are in a VR headset, you are focused on only one thing, and it seems that nothing can break this, and maybe it's like a form of meditation for one. Maybe with this digital media, we will reconnect with our capacity of attention, and maybe we will be able to apply this attention in reality and not only in the VR in itself. That's it. Thank you.